paying attention to social media, which most people are these days, you're going to see all kinds of experts out there in the world telling you how to improve your business. And most of them are suggesting that you should scale or grow your business to improve it or to make it better. Now, the reason that these experts are saying this is because it gets attention. It makes you pay attention to them, but it's really, really bad advice. So my advice is don't listen to those experts, because the reality is if you have a business that's struggling in any way, shape, or form, you're probably looking for ways to solve that problem. And the experts are popping up saying grow and scale. But let's just think about this for a second. If you have a problem, do you want it to be a bigger problem? Probably not, right? So talking about scaling your business, making it larger, or growing your business, making it larger is really bad advice. Let's talk about what good advice is. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how we work with businesses like yours at the Joinery Couch, just click the video below this description. It's at the top of the description. That'll walk you through exactly how we do what we do and answer all your questions. So I'm going to walk you through 4 steps and stages to grow your business. And if you'd like a copy of this, it's a free PDF. Just click the link below. The PDF will walk you through everything I'm talking about here today in clear, easy to follow steps. A business that's struggling right now should forget about scaling and growing. We've been working with joinery businesses and cabinet making business for over 20 years, and we've literally helped hundreds of them go through the steps and stages to get to a point in the evolution of their business where we can seriously talk about growing and scaling. But it takes a little bit of time to get to that point. And there are stages that we go through. So let's just break these into years. Stage 1 is always about getting the foundations of your business right. Think about this like building a house. You can't put the windows, and the walls and the roof on until the foundation is set. So think about this like setting the foundation of your business so that we can get to a stage where we're talking about growing and scaling. The things that a business like a cabinet making and joinery business need to be able to scale is we need to remove friction from the process. Friction is the enemy of scale. Any business that has a lot of friction in it simply will not be able to grow or scale anyway. Businesses that don't have a lot of friction, that are very easy to do, will be able to grow and scale. So when we're talking about friction in a cabinet making business, if you were to map out all of the things, all the tasks that happen, you have marketing. So obviously we've got some conversations going on in marketing, and then you've got sales and you have conversations going on there. And that sometimes is a painful process. And then we have, the client that says, yes, go ahead with it. And they give you a deposit and they sign the contract. And then we've got to figure out what they want. So you can, if you map all this out, you start to feel, okay, there's a lot of friction in this process. If we were to have more jobs coming in, what we're creating is more friction. So the first order of business is removing friction. We want to identify what friction is. And friction is something like in your business, you might not have an operating system that collects information. And so there's a lot of conversations going on. So a friction point is something like telling someone to do something and 2 weeks later they didn't do it. And that caused a lot of problems in the business. That creates friction because it should have been done 2 weeks ago. The reason it happened was because we didn't have a systematic way of notifying that person to go and do it. It was just a conversation that they had to try and remember. That creates friction. What we really want to do is we want to create a system in your business that keeps people on track to doing things without having to be told. Thinking about systemizing your business at the core of it means that you've got one voice from your business, one systematic voice, keeping people on track to do things. So that is a major step forward in removing friction. Now, the people in your business, the first area of the foundation of your business, we want to look at your team and figure out who is on the team. So if someone says to me, come and look at my business, often I get asked that question and, it's a cabinet making business and they're very proud of their factory and all that they build. But I'm not looking at the machinery or the cabinets they're building. I've seen it a million times. What I'm actually wanting to see is the team. I'm wanting to see the people in the business and understand better, are these the right people to improve this business? Do we have the right people in the right places? When I look at a business, I'm not looking at the stuff that most people would look at. I'm actually looking at the team. I'm looking at the people. And I'm assessing, how are they performing in their roles? So the first order of business in foundationally strengthening your business is to empower your team and make sure that you've got the right people in the right places. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get rid of people. That means that if you have, let's just say, for example, you have a production manager in place, and they're struggling to get production out on time, and they're just struggling in that role, what that means is that person needs to be upskilled. So role clarity and performance is really important. The value of your business is going to be directly dependent on the capabilities, the abilities, and the skills and knowledge of the people running the business. And businesses, they hit their head on the ceiling when they hit the limit of the people in the business, the limit of their abilities. And the business will never be able to go above that, particularly when we're talking about the owner. The owner of the business often sets the tone. The business will never be able to get above where that person's capabilities are. Foundationally, the business's ability to become better at what it does is completely reliant on the people in the roles that they fill. Now, if we're talking about businesses that make cabinets, windows and doors, furniture, commercial millwork, whatever it is we're talking about a business that has a lot going on. There's a lot of friction points, as I said earlier. There's a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong. So we want to make sure that the flow through the business is done in a staged way, in a stepped way. Oftentimes we talk about creating flow. Now, flow is the secret to success. Think about it like a garden hose. If a garden hose is kinked, then it just builds up what's known as a bottleneck. And that's what a lot of businesses do. But it's not the kink that creates that. It's not the restriction. It's what did we do prior to the restriction that created the restriction. So in other words, we might have a job in drafting that sits there for 2 days because we're actually trying to draft the entire house. All of the joinery gets drafted before anything gets released to the factory floor. Now that is officially what we would call a bottleneck. The reason it's a bottleneck is because the factory could have been doing some of that work that didn't get released. So when we talk about flow, foundationally, your business needs to be flowing. Otherwise, you've got highs and lows and highs and lows, and that creates friction. Friction is, we don't have any work to do today, or we've got to do 12 hours worth of work today because we've got to get it done quicker. It didn't get released soon enough. So creating that consistent work in the factory means that we want to release work from the drafting department that is the right amount of work for them to do today. And that's going to be very consistent, and it's not based on the job size. It's based on what the factory can do at any given point. So the keys to success in a business like yours is really about getting your batch lot sizes consistently released to the factory so that they can keep working steadily and consistently. That is something that you can schedule and something that you can do.
The Joinery Business Podcast is sponsored by Flexijet 3D. Flexijet is an automated laser measuring system, the next evolution in digital measurement technology. With seamless CAD integration, easily generate 3D on-site models that integrate directly into your design software. With guaranteed accuracy, Flexijet delivers perfect, high-confidence fits for intricate joinery and complex architectural projects. And the cherry on top, Flexijet has localized support that provides comprehensive solutions and expert technical support tailored for your team. At the Joinery Coach, so many of our clients are using Flexijet every single day, creating full, accurate measurements and saving so much time and energy. Jump on the Flexijet website at flexijet3d.com.au and request your tailored demonstration today.
What I'm talking about here today is about the first stage of stabilizing your business, making sure that it has the foundation that it needs to move forward. And that needs to be the focus for a business that is building cabinets and joinery, because that's usually what's holding you back. Now, our experience says in that first year of getting things right, and there's a fair bit of work to do to get it right. We've got some systems that need to be put in place. We've got some processes that need to be built. We've got to get the right people in place. We've got to make sure that we've got consistent work coming into the business. All of these things need to be working really, really well. No growth and no scaling will happen in the first stage. And that's the first thing I want everybody to be comfortable with, that scaling and growing your business is not going to happen until the second, third, or maybe the fourth year or the fourth stage. The first order of business is to get everything right. Once we get into the second stage, or the second evolution of getting your business systemized and growing, what we're then talking about is how do we standardize this? We made it right in the first stage and we got everything flowing and working well. The next step is to figure out how to make this the normal way that it gets done every single time. That's what's known as standardization. In this part of your evolution of your business, this is known as stage 2, we talk about making it standard so that every time a job comes in, it's done exactly the same way to get the same output. Now, I know that a lot of you are going to be saying, well, that's great, Bruce, but we're custom. We do everything different every single time. That's true, but what you do every single time is not different. It might be customized differently, but you're still building square boxes, you're still building kitchens, or you're still doing the same thing. You're not going from building kitchens to building yachts. You're doing the same thing, so we can standardize how you do that, even though each job is different. When a job comes in, we can still release 4 hours worth of work to the factory floor. 4 hours worth of work might mean 20 cabinets, because those cabinets are very basic cabinets, or it might mean 2 wine racks. 4 hours worth of work, because those wine racks are very, very detailed. But it's still, a batch lot is still 4 hours worth of work. So that's the difference between thinking about you do things in custom, we can't standardize it, to standardizing how you put work through your factory. The second year or the second stage is really about nailing it down and getting it to be the standard way everything's done. Now, what we've seen over the years is when a business gets halfway through stage 2, which is usually halfway through the second year, we find that it's like the floodgates start opening, because now everything starts to get a whole lot easier and the business starts flowing. There's less friction in the business. People aren't working excessive hours. The production schedules are being met. Work is going out on time and getting done, finished, complete, getting paid. All these wonderful things start happening usually about halfway through the second stage or the second year, because we've standardized things and now everything's being done the same way that works every single time. And it's usually at about the end of the second year, beginning of the third year, that we can actually start talking about scaling and growing if the business owner wants to do that. Interestingly though, often at this time, the business owner now doesn't want to talk about scaling or growing, because they realize that in the early days, they were talking about scaling and growing because they weren't making enough profit and they were working too many hours. So the answers seemed to be from all of those experts that I should grow my business, therefore it'll take the weight off me, when in actual fact it would have put more burden on them. So when we get to the stage at about the second year into the third year where the weight is taken off the business owner, the business is now profitable and flowing, the team is firing on all cylinders, it might very well be that the business owner goes, this business is the perfect size. Let's just leave it at this. So what we're actually talking about here is finding the right size for you. We're not talking about growing the business. We're talking about what's the right size. And the right size for you might be 6 people. The right size for you might be 60 people. Doesn't really matter. The point is, you probably have a size that you're comfortable with in your business. And we need to remove this thought of generally thinking we need to continually grow the business. That is another catchphrase that's been thrown out in the marketplace. If making your business bigger all the time solved the problems, no business would have any problems right now. But it is true that you might grow your business because there's an opportunity for a contractor to come on board and you can take on more people. You might intentionally grow your business. There's 2 kinds of growth. One is organic, that happens naturally, and the other is intended or planned growth. Planned growth has a start and a stop to it, a beginning and an end, and that's fine. If you plan to get a bigger factory or grow your team, that is something you would do because you planned it to happen. Organically, your business doesn't necessarily need to grow, it does need to get better. So what I'm recommending is replace the term we need to grow all the time to we need to get better all the time. Because when you start thinking about improving all the time, then your business does get to a stage where you probably aren't thinking that it needs to get bigger. And it's a wonderful place for business owners to be in. When we work with business owners and teams into the third and fourth year, that's where the magic really happens. Think about it like compounding interest. Maybe not a great example, but when you get a home loan, that's a 30-year payoff because you're paying off the interest for that period of time, and the interest is what kills you. Interest compounds and it adds up. The benefit of doing the work first in a business is like compounding benefit. And that compounding benefit isn't found in the first year because you're working on it and you're building it in the first year. The compounding benefit will be found in the second, third, and fourth year. We're working towards businesses finding that compounding benefit. I would love it if it happened in the first 6 months if you're improving your business. But in most cases, there are so many basics and fundamentals that need to be put in place that it just takes some time to do that. Wrapping up the point of this podcast, the point is, don't listen to the experts that are telling you to grow and scale your business is the way to fix your business, particularly if you've got a lot of problems, not making enough profit, working too many hours. Growing and scaling is just going to kill you and it won't fix anything. Think about what do you need to do to fix the problems in your business, to remove friction, and that is probably around systemizing your business. Think about how do you remove friction. Think about how do you get everybody on one page in the business. And let's get really clear on what's needed to make something that if you wanted to grow it, you actually could grow it and it would become something amazing. The steps through the stages, let's say there's 4 stages to getting to the point where you could grow or scale. Stage 1 is really about the fundamentals. That's the basics. Most people that we work with don't have the basics in place. The second stage is talking about standardizing things and making it repeatable. So every time something happens in the business, you've done it a million times and you've got a standard way of doing it every single time. That's stage 2. Standardize what you're doing, make it repeatable. The third stage, often the third year, is about making things predictable. So now you've got a foundation that is creating standard ways of doing things. Now we can start predicting what's going to happen in the future because you know it's going to happen the same way every single time. So the third stage is about predicting, planning, and structuring what you're going to do into the future and having confidence that that's going to happen because the first 2 stages have created that confidence. And in the fourth year of business, that's usually when we start talking about growing and scaling. But more than anything, we're talking about how do we ramp up profitability in that fourth stage? Because now we've got these tools, we've got this engine in a business that is able to just dial it up. What we see often when we have businesses at this stage of working with us is they're a business that everybody wants to build their joinery. They're the place that everybody goes to get their joinery. And that usually means that you're going to be able to ask the price that you need to ask to be profitable like you need to be. So there is some work to do in getting a business like yours through those 4 steps and stages to get to a stage where we could talk about scaling and growing. But more than anything, we're talking about getting to a stage where we've got flow, the weight's off your shoulders, it's a profitable business, usually 20% net profit or more. Yeah, the business has become this thing that's given you the life that you really wanted. So don't listen to the experts. Don't listen to them talking about growing and scaling right now unless you've got all your systems in place and your team's in the right place and everything's firing on all cylinders. If you do, yes, growing and scaling would be the way to go. Most businesses aren't. So we've got to actually do the hard stuff. And that's why this conversation isn't one that most experts will talk about, because it's not easy. It's not sellable, but it's true, and you have to do it. Otherwise, you're never going to get to those stages you want to get to. Hopefully this has been helpful. What I've summarized for you here is there is 4 stages mapped out to get your business up to be profitable and scalable and growable, but it starts with the tough one first. We've got to do this tough stuff first. And if you'd like to learn more about doing that tough stuff to get to those other stages, we're more than happy to have a quick chat. Bruce from the Joinery Business Podcast and the Joinery Coach. Hopefully you have an amazing day. Hope to chat with you soon. Peace out.